This is crucial information, and it's something you need to understand now. Starting March 7th, Social Security is implementing significant internal changes that will directly impact how cases are handled, how appointments are scheduled, and how problems are resolved. If you're not aware of how these changes might intersect, you could face delays, confusion, or additional frustration when you need assistance the most. While some of these changes could improve service, others might cause temporary slowdowns, especially if you're dealing with complex issues like disability claims, SSI, or other specific cases. Before I continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever had to contact Social Security or visit one of their offices for help, even just once? I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments. It's always interesting to see how people's interactions with the system match up. So, here's the shift. For a long time, Social Security's model was based on local field offices. Each local office handled cases for people within a particular area. The staff in these offices knew the specific rules of that area, including state-level programs and how Social Security interacted with things like SSI or state supplements where you lived. In many ways, these offices function like smaller versions of Social Security itself. If you went in person, you were likely talking to someone who dealt with cases just like yours regularly, and they understood the local nuances. Starting on March 7th, however, this model will change. Social Security is moving to a national system for managing cases. Instead of having local offices handle mostly local cases, offices across the country will begin handling cases from anywhere in the U.S. This transition will be facilitated by two new systems, one for national appointment scheduling and another for national workload management. The goal is to distribute the work more evenly. For example, if one office is overwhelmed with cases and another office has the capacity to take on more, the workload can shift rather than causing a backlog to pile up. On paper, this sounds logical and, in theory, could improve the speed and efficiency of case processing. Social Security argues that this new system will help reduce backlogs and maximize staff resources. While Social Security offices will still exist and remain the first point of contact for the public, the internal workings of case processing will become much more centralized. This is where things get a bit more complicated, and to be honest, potentially concerning. These changes aren't happening in isolation. Over the past year, the Social Security Administration has experienced significant internal challenges. Roughly 12% of its workforce has been cut, equating to around 7,000 jobs. Additionally, some regional offices have been shut down, leadership has shifted, phone systems have been overhauled, and at the same time, beneficiaries are being encouraged to increasingly rely on online services, despite the fact that not everyone is comfortable or able to navigate those digital systems. So, when Social Security talks about a national system improving efficiency, critics have raised a reasonable question. Is this truly modernization, or is it simply a way to cope with a smaller workforce? Before these cuts, Social Security was already struggling with significant backlogs. Disability claims could take months to process, SSI cases were often complex, and phone wait times were notoriously long, sometimes stretching into years. With the additional challenges brought on by staff reductions and a shift to national systems, some experts are concerned that technology, while helpful, can't fully replace the need for human employees, particularly in a system as intricate as Social Security. And that's not the only concern. Social Security programs don't operate uniformly across the country. Some states offer extra payments, have specific rules, or may have particular eligibility requirements based on local factors. The worry with the national system is that staff may not be as familiar with these state-specific details. While this doesn't guarantee mistakes will occur, it does mean there's a larger margin for error, especially if training isn't thorough or staff are stretched too thin. Speaking of training, this is another major issue. Social Security employees will need to get up to speed with entirely new systems and workflows, all while handling cases from states they might not have ever worked with before. This learning curve will take time, and during this period, the quality of service could feel inconsistent. Some people might experience faster processing times, while others may feel like things are slower or less personalized than they were in the past. This uneven service is a real possibility as employees adjust to their new responsibilities. That said, Social Security has made some strides in recent months, and it's important to recognize these improvements. For example, the agency has reported answering far more calls than in previous years. The average wait time on hold has dropped to the single digits, a huge improvement from the 20-minute holds many people used to face. A larger portion of calls are now handled through self-service options or callback systems, although I've still heard from people who say that callbacks can take a while to come through. Leadership has also pushed to use data and technology to drive improvements. The Social Security website now operates around the clock, disability backlogs are down, and processing times have shortened. Inspectors have reviewed these improvements, and their findings confirm that Social Security is making real progress. So, while there are signs of forward movement, it's important to understand that Social Security is responsible for about 75 million people. That's a massive undertaking, and with fewer staff, new systems, and a national workload model, the risk is that this transition could cause real issues for people who rely on the system. Now let's clear up what doesn't change with this shift. Your Social Security payment amount won't be cut. Your payment date won't change. Eligibility rules aren't being rewritten on March 7th. If you're already receiving benefits, those benefits will continue as normal. What could change, at least temporarily, is how easy it is to get help when something goes wrong. Whether it's fixing an overpayment notice, resolving a Medicare enrollment issue tied to Social Security, clearing up an SSI eligibility question, or following up on a disability claim, those are the areas where you might notice differences. I want to emphasize that this is not a cause for panic, but rather a reason to be aware. Knowing that these changes are coming will help you stay prepared and patient if things feel different for a while. One practical tip I always recommend is keeping excellent records. Save any letters or notices you receive, write down who you speak to and when, and always keep copies of any documents you submit. These small habits can be especially helpful during a time of transition. If you're comfortable with online accounts, it's also a good idea to use those more regularly, as they're becoming increasingly central to how Social Security operates. At the same time, Social Security field offices will remain open for in-person assistance. The shift is mainly about how work is processed and assigned behind the scenes, not about eliminating these offices. Lastly, this change in Social Security is part of a larger trend we're seeing in government agencies. More and more departments are experimenting with centralized workflows and private sector-style management. The IRS, for example, is undergoing similar changes, particularly with new tax provisions under the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is expected to lead to higher refunds this year. The thinking is that using technology and smarter workflows can enhance services without constantly increasing staff. Supporters of these changes argue that this is the way forward, but we must acknowledge that, as with any transition, the process is bound to have some bumps along the way, and it's important to be prepared for that. As these changes unfold, it's essential to recognize that the shift to a national system isn't just about logistics. It's also about adapting to a broader trend in how government services are evolving. The push towards centralization, combined with a reliance on technology and data, reflects a desire to streamline operations and cut down on inefficiencies. However, this kind of transition comes with risks, especially when it involves such a complex, high-stakes system as Social Security. While automation and centralized workflows can certainly improve things in the long run, they can also create new challenges in the short term, particularly if there's a lack of training, system glitches, or if the human touch, which many people rely on in sensitive cases, is diminished. Understanding these factors ahead of time can help you stay patient and prepared, but also make it clear that this process may require time and adjustments to get right. Keeping an eye on how things unfold will be key, and being proactive with your own case, staying organized, and using available resources could make a big difference in navigating the transition smoothly.